Good evening. My name is Mark Baratelli, and welcome to How to Start a Food Truck. This is brought to you by the Orlando Public Library and thedailycity.com. If you're not familiar, thedailycity.com is about 6 years old. It's an arts and culture site talking about all the fun things that are going on in Orlando, Florida. We do a bunch of events like this. We do something called Cardboard Art Festival, and we also do an event called the Food Truck Bazaar. And to give you a little bit of history, the Bazaar started in 2011 with 8 trucks. And now the scene, I would say, has around 80 or so trucks after 2 years. Yeah. So the scene has definitely grown and changed. And we did this same thing about 6 months ago. And even in that short amount of time, the scene has changed even further. So I'm very excited to hear and share with you guys how it's changed. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce our great panel. And we'll start over here. And if you'll just give us your name and what truck you're from or what city entity you're from.
Hi, my name is Jason Burton. I'm with the City of Orlando. I happen to be the Chief City Planner for the city. I deal with all sorts of things from development regulations to the urban design of the city to what is legal within the City of Orlando. I tend to write a lot of the laws along with a lot of the other folks, and I'll be probably talking a little bit about food truck regulation, at least as it pertains to the City of Orlando.
I'm Candace Hawks, and I'm with Charlie's Gourmet Pastries. We have the Charlie's Bakery food truck, which we started back in October of 2012.
Hi, I'm Kristen Christensen. I own Lollipops and Pistols Vintage Fashion Truck.
She owns a fashion truck, and we'll be getting into that and mobile retail towards the end of the talk.
I'm Joey Canicella. I'm with the Yum Yum Cupcake Truck.
And I'm Alex Mayer and the other Yum.
My name is Vivica, and I'm the owner of the SwedeDish Food Truck, and I started 2011 in October, and we live in a Winter Park.
My name is Bruno Fonseca. I'm the chef owner of 5 Gastronomy Food Truck. We started early 2012.
Great. So we have a really, really good panel. You're welcome. This is really casual. We're going to kind of take you through the process of what everybody did to start their truck. We'll do some Q&A, and then, like I said, at the end, we'll talk about mobile retail and other things you can sell from a truck besides food. So this is very casual. So to get the thing started, what is the first step, and this goes out to everybody on the panel, what is the first step in starting a food truck?
Research.
Yes.
Research,
Lot
okay.
Of research.
All right.
Okay, yeah, you need to lot of research and also attend a lot of different kinds of events.
I actually would say that. Does this come on? Okay. I would say that before the research comes the idea, and I think that's really important because that will decide, I think, a lot of your fate as a business and a food truck. Is if the idea, is something that has not been done before, that you can do well, and that the public will respond to in a positive way. So I think, the idea is something that you need to research, but it's really, you really want to flesh out your idea. I've had people come up to me in the past and say, I'm going to do, a truck of all, camping desserts or something like that. And I didn't know what that meant, but, it sounded a little odd. So I think that, you really have to flesh out, your idea first with your family, with your friends. And
The concept.
The concept. I mean, it's really, it's the foundation of everything. And then from that point, if your friends and family feel like it's a positive thing and you feel like it's a good idea, then, you want to go on to the next steps.
And the whole research aspect of it, you have an idea, and maybe you find that wasn't the right idea, or there's already 18 other people doing it. And so, what maybe it's too complicated, and maybe it wouldn't work in mobile business. So, that research part, keeping that idea and making sure that idea is fluid so that you can kind of change your concept, modify so that you can be successful with it.
I would definitely tell anybody to be your own devil's advocate. Know exactly what your future mishaps and mistakes could be, and grow from it before you even open. So I did a lot of research. Sadly, I didn't have the money to open when I wanted to open. I think I told Mark this before. I wanted to open 5 years ago. I ended up opening in 2012, and just surely because of no money. So it took me a while for me to get what I wanted to get. I finally got it. I'm happy with it, but definitely be your own devil's advocate.
My research basically was going out to the food truck events in general and taking lots of pictures, checking menus, seeing what everybody was offering, tasting the product that everybody was offering so that I knew what we were going to put on our truck. We had to narrow it down versus what everybody else is offering. You have to determine where you're going to be different. So you're not going to come in and bring in the same product that Five Gastronomy does or Yum Yum Truck. We do not put cupcakes on our truck. You have to be different. You have to bring them back. You create a following. Yum Yum has a huge following, and you have to do the research to get to that point.
So you do your research, you have an idea. Joey, can you talk a little bit about a business plan, what it is, and why it's so important?
Sure. I think, can everyone hear me okay?
You can pull that out.
Okay. I'm pretty loud as is. Okay, there you go. One of the things that we did as a food truck and as a business was we spent about, and I do mean this, 6 months writing a business plan. I ask a lot of small businesses whether or not they're food related or food truck related, and they look at me like I'm crazy that I spent that much time doing it. But if you go back to our business plan now, it really is spot on with not so much the revenue, but and how much it would cost and stuff like that. But it's because that stuff is you have to be a fortune teller to predict. But your guiding principles, your mission statement, who you're serving, your demographics, where you're going to go, how much things are going to cost to build out and stuff like that. The city of Orlando has a great place called the Entrepreneur Center. I spent a lot of time there.
That's in Fashion Square Mall, the National Entrepreneur Center.
It's sponsored by Disney and UCF, and a lot of cities they have a small business office. They have all these things all over the place. And in Orlando, they're all under one roof, and that's the Entrepreneur Center. And you can go and take classes. We took a class about is small business ownership right for you? Because they try to scare the hell out of you to see if you really have what it takes to own your own business. Half the people left that night, that class, not wanting to open a business. But, you take these classes there, and then you have access to all of their business plan software, their computer lab. It was basically a nice, quiet place for us to go to and think about our business. There's mentors there that have retired from small business ownership. But the business plan itself, it's long, it's lengthy. It's like doing a project that you don't want to do in school, but you have to do it. But if we go back to our business plan, it's spot on with who we're serving, who our customers are. It almost like gives you a manual for yourself. And I suggest that all of you do it, even if it's 5 pages and not 30 like ours. Do a business plan. You will
30?
Yes.
Wow.
But it's something that you can show to potential investors, to banks, to friends. It's I don't know who else on the panel has done one, but even if you open a business and then haven't done one, go back and do one, because it really is a good exercise.
Oh, and never throw away your business plan. I had kind of quit the idea of doing it, and I never threw it away. And then I finally met my partner investor, and I had it. I just pretty much just plugged in the current numbers, if you will, of a food cost plan that I had on it, and I gave it to him. So it literally took me 15 minutes from the moment that I met this person to print my business plan and give it to him.
And
Don't lose faith, in other words.
I was going to say, I think that process, that 6-month process, really forced Joey and I to be resourceful. And I think that not just asking for easy answers from other business owners, that's obviously a resource for you, but the city of Orlando has great websites that have information about street vending, mobile vending, where you can, where you can't, what guidelines you have to follow with food service. And it forced Joey and I to educate ourselves about this romantic concept that we came up with and actually flesh it out.
And can I share this about your business plan? And stop me if I'm not allowed to. But you didn't.
No.
uh, uh, Writing a business plan to me sounded very daunting. We talked about this a few years ago, but you didn't start with just a blank piece of paper, just pulling words out. You actually started with almost a template that center provided you.
Yeah,
Can you
the
talk to
Entrepreneur
that?
Center. They have a small business a business plan computer lab, and they have business plans from every business that you can imagine: coffee shops, popsicle stands, popcorn carts, anything food related. They have a business plan. They didn't have one for a cupcake truck, but I used templates from a coffee shop, a bakery, an ice cream truck, and it gives you a good just base. Those questions like, how much can I expect to make? I mean, don't try to reinvent the wheel. It's the homework's been done for you by thousands of people, and it's all cataloged in a database at the Entrepreneur Center. And they answer a ton of questions like, ice cream truck. Even though my needs were different, I could get a basis of what I could expect to spend or make, demographics, stuff like that. So the templates, yeah, it's so funny. I look at it every now and then just to see. And the templates really did help. And it's all free once at least this is how it was when we did it 3 years ago. You pay for like one class, and then all that stuff is open to you, to my knowledge. If anyone finds that different, I'm sorry.
And it's not just a business number crunching thing. There's also a philosophy that you force yourself to come up with, and then that kind of paints the rest of what you do, right?
Sure. We come up with something called the 3 R's, and a lot of like these major hospitality companies like Marriott and stuff, they have these kind of like 4 corners of, customer service and all that stuff. And we had created stuff like that where, I think our 3 R's are responsibility, I don't know what they are actually, but yeah. No, but you go back and it's like, oh wow, okay, we actually were guided by that stuff. Our mission statement, it's who we're serving. It is you do create a story almost for your business, and then like Vivica was saying, the research and the events that you do, it's just a space that you can plug it all down and put it on paper.
And if I can talk about research, beyond just going to some truck events or seeing a truck on the street and taking pictures of the ones that are in Orlando, I think everyone would agree, go online and look at what other cities are doing. Look at what other cities' trucks look like. I think everyone would agree that Orlando's trucks have a different look than some other cities, and it's fun to get inspiration from other cities and from other small businesses outside of your city. Jason, could you talk a little bit about once a truck has gone through the process of research and business plan and stealing other people's ideas, I'm kidding. What are the first couple things that a truck would do to begin their business?
Anyway, it's very exciting that we have a lot of food trucks in the city, but there are some regulations that we have to keep in mind as we go through the process. One of the things that we're really particular about is that we don't allow people to sell off of the city's rights of way. So that's the first thing.
Can you explain exactly what a rights of way is?
A right of way would be a street or a sidewalk. So if you got a street or a sidewalk location, we really don't allow you to sell off of the sidewalk. For instance, if you've heard about the new destination downtown and the talk about doing different hours of operation for bars in the downtown, as well as toughening up on sidewalk cafes, regulation of hot dog carts and things like that are also coming up. We do not allow anyone to sell upon the city's sidewalks, and we will start ticketing people through our police department if you're going to be selling on the sidewalk. That's the first thing. So you got to keep in mind, you have to have permission of that property owner, and the city has a restriction on people actually selling on the streets and sidewalks of the city. Once you get past that, you really want to start with where do you want to do this type of use at, and considering the zoning and those types of issues at a local level, but you really need to start at the state level. Mobile food vendors are required to get state permits first. So you're going to get a truck and you're going to get that license through the Division of Hotels and Restaurants at the state level. So a lot of you probably have already done that to date, I would imagine, right?
We have an ag license because we don't bake on the truck, so we did not have to have the other license.
And you got to keep that in mind because the different types of operations are going to have different types of requirements. So if you're going to actually be serving and cooking food on that particular truck, there's 3 different categories at the state level, and our local regulations kind of match it. There's food trucks where you're preparing stuff on the truck itself. There's what I would call those like prepackaged food sales, which I call them lunch trucks. And then you've got food carts, which usually are only limited to things like boiled peanuts and hot dogs and prepackaged food. So you have to decide which one are you. And then you're going to get the appropriate state license. Then you're going to come to the city, and then we're going to work with you as to where exactly you can go. And all mobile food vendors from now on are required to get a permission from the city planning department as to where exactly they can go. So this is a new regulation. Just to give you an idea, we allow people to go in our city's main streets and at the major malls, and these are locations that have to have excess parking. So the Fashion Square Mall has excess parking, and they can actually go there. Beyond that, inside the downtown area, we're also allowing people to be inside the downtown with the exception of the entertainment retail core of downtown, roughly between Jefferson Street and Anderson Street on the south side, the arena on one side, and Roslyn Street on the other. We will not allow people to do any kind of mobile food vending in that cell.
You mentioned the Main Street program.
Correct.
What is the website for that?
There's lots of different websites for the Main Street program, but I'll name some of them because they all have their individual program websites. So there's the College Park Partnership is one of them. That's the one in College Park along Edgewater Drive. There's the Audubon Park Garden District. There's also Mills 50, which is kind of the VME district, if you know where that's at. Thornton Park has their own district now as well. We also have the Church Street district, and we have the South Downtown district, which is along South Orange Avenue.
So in Orlando, to vend, you need to be on private property, basically.
Correct. You should be on private property, and as you go through the city's process, it's important to get the permission of the private property owner. I mean, that's kind of key. When you show up, when you show up to the city, we expect you to have notarized permission from that property owner. That means you're going to have a slip of paper that is notarized by that property owner saying, I give this person permission to be on my piece of property. The reason why is because land use rights, when we go to code enforce against somebody, it's not against you, it's against that property owner, essentially. Because everything goes back to the property owner and the maintaining their property correctly. Does that make sense?
And yes, is there one location on the city's website where they can go and all of this is sort of located, or is that in the works?
It's in the works, actually. We just recently passed this, and I brought copies of the council action.
Handout.
A handout,
What?
so you can understand where it actually goes, and it includes maps and things like that, but lists all these things that you're required to do, and actually explains where and when and how, and each types of those different types of food trucks, prepackaged food, and what's the last one? Food carts, has restrictions and limitations as to where you can do it. For example, a hot dog cart, while we won't allow it on the city sidewalks in downtown, we will allow you to put it on an improved plaza within the downtown. So if you got permission of the private property owner in the middle of downtown at the Plaza Cinemas over here, you know, with the big TVs on the walls, they could actually have those types of vendors there if they so chose, and then we would go through that process of issuing you a letter saying that you were permitted in that district. For now, a good part about this is that the city is offering free permits for mobile food vending for the first 90 days. That starts today, actually.
You're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome.
So I'm sorry. Can you go into details, if you don't mind, briefly?
About the free permit?
Yes.
Well, the free permits are through the city planning's division, and of course, it's going to require that you actually meet with us first through a pre-application meeting so we can go over where you want to operate, what your operation is, getting an understanding of what the site layout is for where you want to go, the multiple locations where you want to go, and we'll go ahead and put that all in your permit. You can even do it from the process or aspect of a private property owner. For instance, I met with Mother Falcon today, which is in the Thornton Park District, and she has a round robin of food trucks that come into her property. What I might be doing is actually writing her a letter, giving her permission to have people going onto her property, but she'll have to submit to me the details for their state licenses for each of the different food trucks that she actually has.
So you can't go on the sidewalk, you can't go on the street, but what you can do is partner with a business. Find a business that values food trucks, that knows that sometimes food trucks can bring business into their business, and partner with them.
Correct.
And if anything, if Orlando has one thing, it's parking lots out the wazoo and tons of businesses that are looking to drive traffic to their business. So definitely partnering with an existing business is a good idea. So we've done the ideas and the business plan and the city. Next is the truck itself. Where?
It's governed by the county. My understanding is the county does not allow for food trucks on private property from their zoning district perspective. When they get active complaints about food trucks, they will code enforce. But that's the key with most cities and most counties and most local communities. They're usually complaint-based driven code enforcement, and that's the same thing with the city of Orlando. So depending on where people at, I mean, there was a famous incident in the Milk District where people were selling off the street. One of the businesses in that neighborhood complained, and there was an action that happened with that, if you all recall. It's all complaint-based, but what we're trying to do is actually get people actual approval so that they know where exactly they can go from a food truck, food cart, prepackaged food perspective.
So the truck, where do you get a truck? Craigslist? Your neighbor? Where do you start looking for trucks? Where's a good place, a good spot to
Surprisingly
start?
enough, Craigslist could be a good place.
Really?
Also, by doing research, speaking to the food truck owners and saying, hey, I like a truck. Who built your truck? What would you have done differently? Would you go back and build with that person?
So does the place that sell you the truck is also the same place that builds out the truck?
Not necessarily, no. I'll take my case, for example, and I had a lot of positives and some negatives on my own, and that place is going to remain nameless. Let's just put it this way.
It was me. I built that.
I walked into the gentleman's office, I explained to him my idea, and I told him somewhat what kind of interior space I needed and what I was going to be putting in there as far as equipment goes. And he told me, well, you need X truck. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? We went through a couple different trucks that were for sale. I said, I'll like this one. It's going to cost me X amount of dollars. He brought it in. We designed a floor plan, and it was built. Just like any other sort of construction that you ever have been involved with, there will be delays. On my case, there was more delays than I was expecting. But
Just a sort of quick survey, from the time you buy the truck to the time you open, how long a period is that?
Jesus.
We bought our truck at the end of May, and my husband and another baker at the bakery actually outfitted it. We didn't have the grill and everything else, and it took them until the mid-September before we got it on the road.
And when did you buy it?
We bought it off of Craigslist, and he traveled to South Carolina to buy it because some of the Florida trucks are very expensive. And we were able to find a less expensive truck there, and it ran very well. And it's still running.
We decided for our business to go trailer instead of truck, and I'll share with you, we had ours built by Worldwide Trailers at Tampa.
This is Bryce,
Oh,
ladies
sorry.
and gentlemen. Bryce,
owner
can you
Fork in the Road.
Fork
for
in the road.
today's, you can just call me late. So we had our trailer built by Worldwide Trailers at Tampa. There's definitely some upsides and downsides to trailer instead of truck. One being that I'm really big and it's hard to fit in some spaces, but the other one being that on the upside, if my truck breaks down, I go to U-Haul for $19 an hour, I'm still working. Some of these guys will tell you they've been down for days, weeks, months.
It's a real question to ask yourself if you want to go trailer or truck.
Yeah.
Because last summer both of our trucks went down within a week of each other. I mean, it was hard.
Yeah. I had a very good build-out experience. They were able to outfit the trailer for me and build it in more time than it took, or less time than it took me to pay for it. I was there, I picked out what I wanted, I approved the floor plan, and everything was in it and ready to go within a matter of a few weeks. So dealing with that particular entity, 2 thumbs up. They do a really good job, and if you want to go that route,
Who was
they're a
it?
great one to work with. Worldwide Trailers at Tampa.
When we built out our truck, there was no one. I think there was maybe only one option in Orlando that would actually do truck food truck build out. The industry hadn't launched yet. So we actually had our original truck built in Jacksonville to our specifications because we do all of our food production in an actual commercial kitchen. So that truck took probably about 2.5 months. And then our second truck, we actually built it locally here, and it took 6 weeks, and it was a really seamless process because one of the things is we knew exactly what we wanted for the second truck. We could improve upon what mistakes maybe we had made the first time around.
You also have to, a lot of people, and did you build your own truck out, right?
That's, okay. I think my situation is pretty unique compared to most of you guys because my husband, he built the truck from scratch. And one thing I want you all to be aware about, it's a reason why a delivery truck is for sale. It's have high mileage, bad transmission. So you need to be aware, even if you have a new shiny kitchen equipment, but your engine can, maybe it's a reason why they sell it cheap, and it's because it's maybe the engine or the transmission.
Your truck new or old?
Our truck is from '86, but it was owned by NASA and only had 30,000 mileage on it. But even if it's only had 30,000 mileage on it, my husband, he served it all the time because you need to be aware about that. It's a big difference to have a food truck compared to a restaurant. You need to be able to take your truck from point A to B. And it's so many trucks out there, and they are so old or high mileage. And it's sad to see because it's people are, you can be an awesome chef and have a awesome menu, but if you don't, you need to be aware about this things with a truck compared to a restaurant, and you need a buffet. You need, even if you have you spend the money for the truck, you need to be able to maybe fix the truck 2 weeks later. And that's the same thing if somebody build the truck for you, it's still an old truck. 90%, correct? It's
Yes.
an old engine, so you have to look into that it's this company who built your truck. Maybe he got the truck for $1,000 with 350 mileage on it. So it's that's for me my best advice for everybody. Be aware about what kind of truck you are buying, and if you are not technical, you can always have somebody else mechanic looking at the truck. And that's actually what my husband did for another food truck owner a couple of weeks ago, that he checked the truck, that the engine was okay, and the transmission, and even the rear end, because you travel a lot each week. So
And one thing I was going to tell you folks as well, make sure before you get into this, you find yourself a good mechanic. New, old, whatever kind of truck you're going to be buying, it's going to be needing constant maintenance.
And would you say the best way to choose one is by word of mouth?
By word of mouth,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Funny enough, when I walked in here, I was talking to Alex, and he asked me, who's my mechanic? And I explained to him that another person that worked at a food truck that recently left their scene recommended me. I'm like, okay, sure. I met the guy. I'm still with him a year later. My truck has gone. I have bought a truck that was older, and not already, because after 80,000, no, sorry, I'm lying, 60,000 miles, I had to exchange its transmission and motor. So my motor and my transmission are both, now they have 20,000 miles apiece. So it's one of those things, folks, that you're going to encounter. So just be ready for it, meaning get a mechanic that you can trust and you have a steady relationship with.
And it's something to think about in other cities like Portland or Seattle, where they have food truck areas that the trucks just sit and they don't move. In Central Florida, we have a very unique kind of scene that the trucks travel from Titusville to Kissimmee. We go all over. It's almost like the exact opposite of really what they are in other major cities. So the trucks here, you guys will be driving trucks or trailers a lot more than the typical, food truck in another city. So, that mechanic bill on your business plan, like double it, triple it, quadruple it, because, the trucks, like Vivica was saying, they're old. Our original truck is an antique. That's what gives it its appeal. But it runs like an antique. Well, now it doesn't because it has a new engine. But the trucks. She's right. The trucks will break down, and that if you have a broken down truck, you cannot make money to pay your mechanic bill. So it's very difficult. It puts people out of business. It's something to think about. That's why, like Bryce said, he went with a trailer. I think that's really something. If you want to go that route, to research it.
Yeah, just to add to Yum Yum's comment, the city is aware of sanctioned food truck events in other major cities. In fact, next week I am going to Portland, Oregon, and I'm working with their city on a whole myriad of issues on how to plan their city and how they do things. But in our new program, the city also wants to have sanctioned food truck areas much like Portland, Oregon, and we are looking to do that at the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center Plaza. We're also going to open up concessionaire agreements for that plaza, as well as the West Washington Street expansion to Lake Eola Park. So I've included these things just to let you know that we are interested in doing that more in the future. We're even trying to do similar things with the Church Street district in the downtown, and hopefully we'll have a clothing market there with hopefully one of our vendors there eventually. Right? You're going to be there. She hopes so. Okay.
So when you're looking for a business to partner with, and you want to, like, say you want to approach a business and be there once a week or every day, how do you go about selecting the business that you want your truck to be on, and what types of businesses are open to having a food truck in their parking lot or having multiple food trucks in their parking lots on a weekly or daily basis?
We have an interesting schedule where Yum Yum parks at local businesses quite often, and we also do a lot of these larger food truck events. And I think this is an important point to touch on. Orlando specifically has really trended towards an event-driven food truck scene. Mark's events, the food truck bazaars, there's countless others in other cities. They're monthly, and it's really hard to plan your monthly budgets off of events that you don't know. Are you going to get into? Is it going to rain? You're counting on this one big event, and it's going to rain that week. You also have to think about how your customer is going to know where to find you. If you don't have a regular schedule, if you don't have business hours, how are they going to know to come to your truck? If you rely solely on events, you cannot be a consistent business. You can't get guaranteed access to events. It's something that is very specific to Orlando, probably Tampa as well. Because of that, we make sure that our customers know that they can find us at certain locations no matter what. So if there's not a food truck bazaar, festival, fiesta, you can find us at XYZ parking lot in Thornton Park, or you can find us in Maitland on this day always, regardless of if there's a food truck event or not. And what that does, it creates a consistent place for your customers to come. It creates business hours. We can say we're open 6 days a week no matter what, because we always have a location. Now, a lot of trucks here specifically don't necessarily like that model, because why open for 5 hours at a store parking lot and make $20, not $20, but make a couple $100 when you can open at a food truck event and make $2,000 in 3 hours. It makes much more sense to put the labor in a food truck event, but you really can't open your business in this room and think that you're going to waltz into these food truck events. This is not how it works. And
that's not, to me personally, what I want personally Orlando to be. I mean, we started out with some events, but cities have trucks open 7 days a week in locations, and I hope eventually we get to that point. Sorry.
Well, sure, and and a lot of people, they have jobs elsewhere, so they're only available for these events. But Alex and I, this is our full-time commitment. We have a staff, so we're open. When people say, "Oh, do you have a store?" and I say, "Yeah, it's the Yum Yum truck. I mean, it's open at the same spots, 7 days a week, 6 days a week." So, it's really important, this whole finding a store to partner with. it's something really important to fit into your business plan to think about, because the food truck events, it's always like the first thing people ask, like, well, I heard, you can't get into that event. Well, you probably can't, and you are not going to change that. I think you have to think outside the box and open up regularly and build a following that way. We do really well when it rains and, Mark cancels an event, or, the city celebration cancels an event. We can still go to the parking lot in Thornton Park, and we can still, pay our bills. We can still get by. So it's important that you have that consistency for your customers and for your, for your revenue.
And choosing business partners, can I use you as an example? I mean, you have a fun, kitschy a brand, and so you partnered with like a salon in Thornton Park. You partnered with a retro furniture store in College Park.
And it's also easy for us because, if Bruno tried to open up in Thornton Park, I'm sure Dexter's wouldn't really like it, and Hugh wouldn't like it. No one really is hostile against cupcakes unless I open up next to a bakery or a cupcake shop. So, it's you have to find places, and you always struggle with finding places that will, you're not going to get chased out by the local Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, it's, it happens. But
I'll tell you a story. I was doing a catering here, right in downtown. Paid catering, permit pulled, the whole nine, everything is ready. I'm at a sidewalk right across from a bar that the people that paid me to cater to rented a bar as well. Across the street from me, there was a restaurant that I'm not going to say who. The chef comes out. I know the chef because she was working in the same building as me at the Ritz. The chef comes out, looks at my truck, sends a server to buy food, takes pictures of the truck and everything else. Literally, folks, 6 minutes later, there are 2 cops knocking on the door of the truck. And I'm like, well, I'm very sorry, but I'm here catering. Here's my permit is pulled. The manager of the bar is there. The person that has rented the bar is there as well. More than welcome to speak to them, and just tell so and so that I said hello, that I miss her, I haven't seen her in a while. And it was fine, but this kind of things will happen. So the best thing to do is just like what Joey said. Go to business that you're going to be bringing business to, and you're going to be benefiting from the business that is there as well. And it's the best alliance that I can tell you. There's another truck here in town that they go to a certain gas station. That guess what? They don't sell the gas station doesn't sell the food that they're selling, and the truck is not selling drinks. So everybody's benefiting from one another.
How can you complement that area? How can you complement that business? And does the crowd that business attract also match the crowd that your truck attracts? Which I think you did very very well with the hair salon and the cupcakes.
And it's also just one more thing. Sorry, I don't mean to dominate this part of it, but
dominate.
It's important. So you're thinking probably, God, how if they're parked at a gas station, how are they ever going to get people to come and buy? And how are you going to make money being parked at a gas station? That's a really good point, because it is very slow sometimes. But if you have a customer at your window, it's somebody who's engaged already enough to come and buy food from a food truck at a gas station. So how are you going to make sure they return and that they tell friends? You have to market yourself. Spend $10 at Kinko's, create a coupon that says, follow us on Facebook. Facebook and Twitter, last time I checked, are both free. That's the first thing you should do, is create accounts for those. And so you can, go and like all of the food trucks and all the other, food bloggers and stuff like that. Invite them out to your truck. So when you go to that gas station, people know that you're there. And then you're handing out flyers that say, we're here every Wednesday, $1 off if you bring a friend, whatever it is. And I think, if you do that, eventually you'll see, okay, I did 5 tickets today at lunch. Oh, last week it was 10 tickets. And then all of a sudden, you're building a following. And then, all it takes is an office to come out, an entire office group, and then you're sold out at lunch. It takes time, though, and that's why it's so much easier just to rely on a food truck bazaar. But in the longevity of things for your customer base, you will be so much happier if you build a base, just opening up and people coming for you. And I think that's important, to make sure you're marketing yourself, letting people know that you're there through social media, through old-fashioned coupons. I did it today. I mean, we have almost 20,000 followers throughout all of our social media, and I was out hawking coupons at an office park because no one came to the truck because no one knew we were there. So, and sure enough, I'm sure on Wednesday they'll all come with their coupons because they know we're there now. it's very old-fashioned, but it's hard work, But I think it works. It works for us, and it's we opened up at the salon in Thornton Park for a while. It no one came, but slowly people did start to come, and now we're doing really well there.
There was also a truck a couple years ago that before they opened, they did a really neat thing that sounds obvious, but I thought it was a great idea. They did a soft opening where only media was invited. So you do your research and you find the food writers of all the magazines, all the newspapers, all the food bloggers, and you get prepared. And then you do this tasting this evening, and all the food is free. And those writers get to know your truck, and then they start writing about you. And it gets them, once the media knows about you, that helps. And then maybe do later like sort of a family and friends testing. Has anyone ever done that, where you invite your family and friends, maybe some business people and some key connector people, and do those little mini events that aren't public, that are private, that number one, start to spread the word, but number two, let you sort of get your feet wet in actually serving the food that you're going to be serving on a daily basis. So yeah, that was good. Thanks for coming. So we talked about buying a truck. Go to Craigslist. Is that the only place we did? Where do you buy trucks? You talked about that Florida trucks are expensive, and you found a place that was cheaper.
We were looking online Craigslist and ended up going outside of just the Florida Craigslist and looking in Georgia and South Carolina, and went all the way to North Carolina. And my husband tried out 2 different trucks, and he had somebody that was a mechanic that was able to do an oil change on the truck and say, yeah, this one's good and it's going to last you a little bit longer than most. And just like SwedeDish says, you make sure that it isn't a 300,000 mile engine. Trucks are known to have longer life in their engine than a car, but you still don't want to get up to the 300,000 mark.
So you've bought your truck and you're getting it built out, and you've got your sinks and your whatnot. And
we purchased all of that by doing a lot of research online, and my husband installed everything.
Great.
And the electrical, the plumbing, all of it.
The tires.
All of it, yes.
Windows.
Well, we had to replace some windows.
I broke some of those windows. Sorry about that.
So you do
angry.
learn that you have, when you buy a used truck, you're going to take it from the guts out, and you're going to draw a floor plan and decide how it's best going to work for you. And just like Mark said, when you do those soft openings, which we did a number of them, you work out the kinks for when you're in front of a large group. A large group could be anywhere from 100 people to 2,000 to 3,000 people, or 20,000 people, and you want those kinks worked out before you ever go out and hit that magnitude of service.
Right. So you've de-gutted the truck and you've put in new ceilings and whatnot. Then I want to talk about the design of the outside of the truck. This is something I'm very passionate about.
Can I just add one thing about
absolutely
the truck?
talk into the microphone.
It seems that it's starting to get a problem more and more. I have so many customers complaining about loud generators, and when they're standing in line and order the food, and the truck behind us has a very front generator.
What generator would you recommend people buy?
Unfortunately, it's ours is running on propane, and in California they just allowed propane generators. You can't have a gas generator. But in this case, the best generator is Onan and Honda, and you have to...
Honda, that was Honda.
And you should expect to spend at least $3,000-$4,000 at least on your generator. And I know that not a lot of trucks, but that's the last thing you invest maybe on the truck. So you go perhaps to Home Depot and buy a crappy. But I'm pretty sure. Don't you think so, Mark? In the future, more and more people gonna I mean, expect you to have, as a promoter, expect
Well, I think that the way your truck looks is just as important as how your truck sounds. I mean, if you can have the best looking truck, but if it sounds like a cacophony of lawnmowers,
Yes.
you know, a cacophony of lawnmowers. I wrote that. That sends a signal to your guests.
I think
It doesn't mean that you're not going to sell any food, but it just, you know.
I think Vivica makes a good point, and you don't really want to pay that much money for a generator because it's not like it's not the fun part of what you're trying to do, right? To create. However, if you are a little bit strapped as at the end of your truck build out, which you will be, don't buy the $500 generator at Home Depot. You can go, you know, Honda, we bought 2 brand new generators. We replaced one of our original generator because it was too loud. And we just leased to own the generators for both of our trucks. And that allowed us to not have to put out all that money, you know, up front. And same when we expanded our bakery and we, you know, we did the same thing with our kitchen equipment. And, you know, now we own it, which is always good, but.
And it's not just your guests, it's you. You're going to be in that truck listening to that $500 lawnmower strapped to the front of your truck every single day. So think about your guests, but also think about yourself. So thank you so much for bringing that up, because I totally
more
forgot
than just
about
your
that.
guests and yourself, but your neighbors, because we've got to be next to you. And I think that was really Vivica's point, is she can't hear her customers because that person's generator is too loud. So just think about your neighbors, because we all work very close and in tandem with one another. And if, you know, your generator is making me upset, I'm not going to call you for the next event. You know,
and a lot of these township, that's a Jersey word.
Townships.
Cities. A lot of these cities are cracking down on the generators because people complain. You know, when we go to these high-end communities, like, you know, a lot of the residents don't like the smells or the sounds of the generators, so they're complaining. And now they're a lot of times regulating these generators. So, you know, people will make decisions, you know, with these events and stuff based on the sound of your truck, and as Mark just brought up, the look of your truck. So keep that in mind. I know there was one truck that had a funny name that, you know, masked a curse word. It was like a catchy word, and they weren't allowed to do several events in a lot of the high-end communities. They had to change their name.
Yeah, I turned down for the food truck
Mark
Bazaar.
Baratelli that turned it down.
Oh, sorry. No, I mean, I you know, I don't want to talk about events, but like, you know, if it's a family event and your name is not family friendly, you're not going to go in. Yeah. So don't put a non-family friendly name on your truck. But let's talk about the design of the truck. It seems, and you guys argue with me or agree with me, it seems what's happened is like everyone assumes if you buy a truck, you wrap it. And I just don't see this happening in other cities. I see a more artful, thoughtful, graphic design, thought out truck look. And in Orlando, it seems like we are wrap crazy. And is that coming from the builders themselves? Is it coming from the owners? Is it coming from new owners looking at the trucks that exist, thinking that wraps are the only way to go?
I can tell you all my point of view was whenever I wrapped it. I wrapped my truck with the thinking that I didn't want to. I'll tell you a little bit about me so I can get to that and it'll be brief. I'm a chef. I wanted the truck to be a catering kitchen as well. I wanted to be able to roll into the higher, upper scale neighborhoods, pull up and have no issues. So whenever I said, I'm like, you know what? So I cannot do I don't know if you guys know who these people are or not, the Kogi barbecue in LA, who are pretty much the epitome of food truck.
They invented food trucks.
Well,
gourmet food truck.
Gourmet food truck, sure. And I could not do the graffiti and all that because I want to be able to roll into the Ellsworth and to some of the upper echelon of Winter Park and have no issues whatsoever. I didn't want to put the cucumber exploding through the watermelon and the seeds flying all over the place on the wrap. That wasn't it as well. So I wanted to have a very nice, professionally done.
I think that's a really good point. Think about where your truck's going to go. Your truck might be 7 days a week at a gas station, but you might get that one gig, that one catering gig that is high end, or you might not because of the design of your truck that you chose, 2 years ago.
Mark, we chose we went with the wrap mainly because we believe it's a rolling billboard. It's a billboard to bring people to the bakery. So we wanted to put a nice professional look on it that would last. And doing the graffiti, which is cutesy,
Yeah.
does not lend itself to being professional sometimes. And
This is very interesting. You have a brick and mortar store already,
Correct.
and what you do is you park your truck at your brick and mortar. This giant cookie or just amazing, but gingerbread, yes, in front, and it is a billboard. Yeah,
It
that's
is.
a good
It's a rolling
point.
billboard, and to be honest with you, we've been in the same location 41 years. We put the food truck out front, and you'd be surprised at how many people did not know that we were in that shopping center. It's ridiculous. It is a true billboard, and it's
What's wrong with
fabulous.
you people?
Because
41 years. How dare you?
well, you've gotten a huge turnover in that area of clientele as well over 41 years. I've been there 41 years, but you know, the majority of people that now see it are newbies to Orlando and just truly did not realize it. But with our food truck, they're excited about following the food truck. They come into the bakery and say, "Where are you going to be this week?" We post it in the bakery because people love to follow the food trucks.
And speaking of brick and mortar, sorry, does someone else have something? Yeah. Speaking of brick and mortar, didn't a truck today just announce that they are shutting their truck down and going brick and mortar? Did I read this online? The crooked spoon. Yeah. So that's a success story. I mean, some people want to remain in the truck, but some people see the trucks as a stepping stone. So it is possible, definitely, to go from truck
We went
to.
backwards.
You went backwards. You are
We
regressing.
we actually saw with the economy, this brings more people to the bakery as well because it is something when people go to an event and they like our product, then they have a place to go when they want it for a larger event at their home, whether it be a private party or whatever. They're not getting individual pieces, then they can buy our full product.
But to piggyback on what you're saying, I think your case and Joe and Alex's is something completely different, and also hers with Lollipop and Pistols. It's a retail. These
Correct.
guys are selling desserts, but it's a retail. It's not like what we do over here. We're cooking to order.
Exactly.
So it's a completely different thing. It's great for her that she has a truck now because she can bring a taste of her bakery that she has in one side of town to Dr. Phillips. She goes, yeah, I have a bakery on the other side of town, but I have the truck that roams just to you.
And that is true. That's exactly what it has done. It has helped us in that way. But then for the people that don't have the brick and mortar and they're a chef and they may not have the money to open up a brick and mortar store, they are reaching such a great majority of people by being out there and getting a huge following. And we eat at all the trucks ourselves. I mean, we've really thoroughly gotten engrossed in it as much as we can. And any event we go to, we eat at the trucks.
Jason, is there any laws or is there any laws or legislation or rules against what a truck can and can't put on its outside as far as design?
Yes and no. One of the things about First Amendment protected speech rights, when you get into signage law, it has a lot to do with it, and I am one of the authors of the sign code for the City of Orlando. It goes back to the state. You cannot regulate the message of what's on the side of somebody's sign, for instance. However, you can't have something that is obscene, and the state defines exactly what they mean by what is obscene, and you'll have to look at the law. I won't describe what it is, but you can imagine what obscene means. It's kind of like when the Supreme Court justice says, when I see obscenity, I know it when I see it, if you've ever heard that thing before. So if you can think of those types of rules. Besides that, that's what you have to keep in mind when you're looking at that. The other thing that we do restrict, and I love Charlie's Bakery, it's the best in town, the city does not actually allow you to park trucks with signs on them to actually advertise the business like a billboard. We actually have a specific prohibition against that. No one's really come down on Charlie's, though, about it yet, so I won't.
There are trucks all over.
I know.
We'll hit all of them if we get hit.
We were so regarding the initial question, the design of the truck. We kind of took a different approach. We were all about the aesthetic. We bought our original truck, which was a 1973 antique, and it was shined up like an Airstream trailer, and we thought it was beautiful right from the beginning without any sort of signage or wrap or anything like that. So Joey and I, when we went to work designing the actual aesthetic of the truck, we tried to leave as much of the shiny silver and the rivets and not kind of mask the fact that it's a truck, but actually celebrate kind of what it is in its at its purest form.
Well, if you think about what we do, everything is vintage inspired. So, I mean, trucks were such a big part of food in the 50s. I mean, milk trucks, ice cream trucks, all those delivery trucks. We wanted to, give a throwback to that. One of the things we did, though, work with a professional to design the truck. Not
a professional graphic designer.
Yeah, not a professional
not a
wrap
rapper.
Guy. Right. A lot of these guys at these wrap places say, oh, we have an in-house designer. But we worked with an editorial magazine art director, and he does freelance. And in general, with the trucks that you guys are building out, if you don't feel like you can do it, hire a professional. Yeah. Spend the money and hire a professional. Whether it's a design, whether it's a website, whether it's your marketing, whatever it is, a mechanic. I mean, Vivica has her husband, but Alex and I are clueless, so we pay the services of a professional mechanic. But when it comes to the design, it was really important for us to have it look something that would be in a magazine. And you bet we're in a lot of magazines, Orlando Wedding, we're in national travel magazines, national fashion magazines. The truck has been taken and reproduced on flyers in other cities because it has a great look. So don't underestimate what the truck looks like. Don't let it be like the last thing you do. It can take your brand to a whole nother level. And the Yum Yum truck is I dare say, almost iconic to some people in the stripes, in the logo, in the Airstream finish. So it's something to think about and really and be patient with.
And let me just reiterate what he said. When you go, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about anybody, but the people who do the wraps are sometimes not trained in graphic design because you can use Photoshop and you can use Illustrator and you can put things together and do it does not mean you have graphic design training. You need to seek out and, again, do your research and find really, really good graphic designers. And sometimes they can even be not in Orlando. I don't think your designer was even in Orlando at all. So while you're doing your research, if you find a food truck that you're like, that's a beautiful truck, I say don't hesitate. Write the truck, even if it's in Washington or whatever, and say, who's your graphic designer? Contact the graphic designer, because all those files that end up on your truck can be emailed to Orlando and put on your truck.
And when it comes to the design of your truck, is it something that can work on a business card? Is it something that can work on a menu, as a logo on a website? Can your truck be noticed even when the truck isn't there? So the truck should embody. The design of the truck should embody everything about your brand.
Your philosophy.
Yeah, which is another question. Do you guys have a brand? That's something to think about. What does a brand mean? Google it. Try to define yourself as a brand.
Google the word brands.
Yeah, well,
for real?
if you don't know what there's branding.
No, I'm
I went to
serious.
branding classes, in college where they teach you, there's branding 101, there's advanced branding. I mean, it's something that people spend millions on. So if you don't think you understand what branding means, Google it, because it's the difference between a name and a design and a brand. There's a big difference between the two. And like Bruno was saying, he wanted to be able to roll up to Isleworth. And, his truck is beautiful. He has a brand. People know what to expect from him. They see the logos. They see the TV, the truck. They know what's coming. That's all part of it. And, he obviously thought it out really nicely, and something you guys should do as well.
Thank you.
I'm on the payroll.
Along with food, you had mentioned that they sell products and the products are already made. You did an experiment where you deviated from your menu and you actually sold other people's products. And I think this is fascinating because it's fun to sell your own stuff, but it's also fun to get excited about other people's brands and what other people are doing, especially if what they're doing completely matches what you're doing and they're just as passionate about what they're doing as you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about your holiday market where basically you sold stuff that wasn't yours?
Yeah, is everybody familiar with like the pop-up shop concept where like in bigger cities they're taking vacant spots and retailers going in them for just a month, and it's basically a chance to incubate retail in larger cities. Well, we kind of did the same thing we took one window of our food truck and Alex is handy sometimes, turned it into, sometimes, not when it comes to the mechanics of the truck, but he turned it into a little pop-up shop, and we sourced and found 3 local Florida-based artisan candy makers. So we had all these different types we had gourmet marshmallows, and we had gourmet, brown sugar candy brittle. We had gourmet scratch-made pies, mini pie pops. And for the holidays, we did this little Yum Yum holiday shop in the window, and people could come to the truck, and it was like the only place you could get some of this stuff in the area, and people were coming and buying them as stocking stuffers and gifts.
And sorry, what I love about that is Joey goes to a lot of places, a lot of towns and whatnot, and these brands, they just kind of exist. They kind of like they sell them from their home or they sell them online or whatever. But this was he gave it's a small business helping another small business. He gave this smaller business a chance to go like all around Central Florida and get all that great exposure.
Yeah, I meit's something that works.
Very generous.
It was very generous. No, it works for us. Bruno is a chef. My Alex loves to bake. It's something that is his passion. My personal passion is marketing and branding and local, and the holiday shop, which is when we incubated all the local products. It was an opportunity for me to just kind of promote other businesses that really had cool concepts, cool brands, great tasting product. But it's one of those things that the holidays actually really suck for food trucks. No one comes to the events. Things are canceled. It's cold. People want to stay home. It's all of us lowest month, is it not?
Yeah,
it's
horrible. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
The holiday shop was also a great idea for us to drive business to the truck that we wouldn't have had elsewhere, and it did. And then I was taking bulk orders for that stuff I was selling, on the side.
People booked weddings.
They did. They used the product off for their weddings, but that's something to think about. Always try to do something different. That the pop-up shop, the holiday shop wasn't necessarily just for fun. It also was trying to get business to the truck. You always have to be thinking, how do I increase revenue? I know all the trucks here I was just talking to Lollipops and Pistols. She even does it, but we all do private events, catering, weddings, bar mitzvahs, birthdays, everything. You should be thinking about, that's like a big chunk of Yum Yum's revenue. If the events went away tomorrow, we would still have a catering business. And I think a lot of us would. So, like you were saying, you even have people can do like a party and hire you to come out, and all your girlfriends can go shopping and drink wine in your truck and buy all this stuff. It's a cool idea. What's that?
I said not provided by you.
Oh, yeah, the wine, yeah. BYOB. But, it's something to be thinking about. The revenue can come from, these events, but there's so many other places you can get revenue from. And I think a lot of times when I talk to, budding food truck owners, you're so concerned in, have the build out, the permits, the insurance. That's all really the easy stuff. The hard part comes in really getting people to come to the truck and driving business on a consistent basis so you can pay your bills. So, I keep kind of going back to the branding part of things, but it's something that's really important for you guys to do. And I don't see enough of it in Orlando, and I think everyone, you see these trucks go out of business, and it's not because they weren't good chefs, or it's not because there's no one coming out to the events. It's because they get lost in in how to market themselves. I think everyone knows the best companies out there know how to market themselves. And if you don't, hire a young marketing kid to do it for you. There's plenty of them who need jobs. So it's just, something to really think about when you're going to open your truck.
And the events originally, when we first started our event, was just a way to say, did you know that Orlando had all these trucks? Great. Go get their card and go follow them and go to wherever they are 7 days a week. That was the only purpose, but it's kind of changed. But definitely, like, I just want to reiterate that too. Like, you need to think about where you're going to be 7 days a week, which businesses you're going to partner with, and think about that you're going to be in that truck, I don't know, how many, 5-6 days a week, building that audience in person and also online. And can we talk about online? Like, are there some kind of easy do's and don'ts for handling Twitter and Facebook? Do you just go, huh?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you first thing, and I'm sure that all of us over here can vouch. Oh, better yet, I'm sure. Yep. I don't know about you folks from Charlie's and Lollipops, but I know all of us here on this side. There was a person that had a truck here for a while and did really well, but he often got personal on social media. And huge don't ever get personal on social media. Social media is almost your business card. I think that all of us can say that we depend on social media as much as an employee of ours. Correct? Social media works for you. It works for free. You are doing all the work, but it's your business card to other people. They're trying to get to know you, trying to see where you are, what are you going to be offering, so on and so forth. Don't get personal. Use that daily. Some people even throw in like little facts of like, oh my gosh, so and so today was at a bakery and he created this new thing and so on and so forth. And these guys here, they're great at it because what they do is something really cool. They came out during I don't know if you folks seen it, during March Madness. They came out with a way that
Oh, well, it was, sorry. We actually had raised our prices, and as a way to kind of counter that reaction, I put out this whole March Madness bracket system about voting on cupcakes. And, you know, like all these people, everyone, like 300 people suggested a cupcake flavor. We picked the best, and then it was an NBA-style bracket system to the winner. And there was voting every night on the truck, and then we ended up baking the winning cupcake flavor, which was called the Midnight Snack, and it had beer and the buttercream and all this crazy stuff. But awesome. Yeah, but it was a way to engage our social media followers and do stuff at the truck, to kind of counter a bad reaction from raising the prices. Which,
Any other tips about Twitter and Facebook?
I do a lot of Facebooking, and I've gone to another seminar with regards to it, and you have to constantly put time into your Facebook. You have to answer good and bad comments with regards to your Facebook. People aren't going to always be happy. You need to make people happy and understand how to work with them. Instead of losing them as a customer, bring them back. And that's something that I work on Facebook all the time. I do minimum Twitter because I'm not very good at it, but I know with my Facebook, I've gone from 500 people on Facebook back in September to over 1,100 now. So I'm getting a lot from the food truck.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk before we get to Q&A about the new thing that's coming to Orlando: fashion trucks. Christensen. So we all know that you can sell food from trucks. So people are inside the trucks and they hand you the food. But a thing that is happening in LA and New York and a bunch of other cities is people inside the truck welcoming you to walk inside the truck and actually having a shop inside the truck. Can you tell us a little bit about where you got the idea and sort of a little bit about your business?
Sure. Hi. I actually was originally intending on opening a brick and mortar shop, but no, it's fine. Thank you. The idea of being able to choose when I wanted to go, where I wanted to go to an extent was more appealing to fit my lifestyle. I have a child and a family. So this allowed me more flexibility. I wasn't required to be in one spot from said time to said time, Monday through Saturday or what have you. I started researching the whole concept online, actually initially looking at shops, and then, when you're online, one thing leads to another and you get buried 10 pages in. And I found out that this was very popular on the West Coast, I would say more so than anywhere right now. It's catching on in other locations, but LA was the first one. They have Live Fashion Truck there. They were the first fashion truck out there, and I started following them religiously. And then from then, I found some in Boston and some in Portland and all around the country, and it just seemed fascinating to me to be able to do that and to bring it out to people instead of people coming to you.
And what she sells is vintage clothing, and that's a lot of the trucks in LA. They do vintage clothing, right? But you can do anything. You can sell anything. I think there's a truck where the guys have one of those T-shirt makers where you can like design your own T-shirt and they print it and then you leave. Huh? It's called screen printing. No, that's the. Oh, okay. There's a sneaker one. I mean, if you. Anything can be sold from a truck legally. It's basically a store on wheels, and I'm obsessed with this idea. I was obsessed with food trucks 2 years ago because I thought it was a way to bring creativity from place to place to place, and this is an extension of that. Beyond food, there is merchandise, and any type of merchandise can be sold, and it's. Now, with food trucks, they're partnering with businesses like salons and furniture stores. Do you partner with businesses?
I do, and I was actually listening to them talk about that earlier. And I'm fairly new. I just started in December, so I'm still trying to get into the swing of things. I've kind of done a little backwards, but my key now is to find businesses where I might not necessarily. Initially, I thought bars might be the thing, but I don't think that's where I'm going. I recently have teamed up with an antique store, thinking that that's probably ideal because what they sell is vintage and antiques, and what I have are vintage and antiques, so I'm going to be partnering with them. I have a salon that I work with sometimes. I do a couple markets, but finding your niche on where you think would work, I think that was key. I was listening to them discuss that earlier, and same thing with my field. Finding people that you mesh with is really key.
Has anyone seen that Marshalls commercial? There's a string of commercials. There's an example of a large retailer building out they have their Marshalls truck and they go to different cities and they have people react to their clothes and they film it. But I mean, it's totally on trend.
If you want to see a listing, we have 3 right now in Orlando, 3 fabulous fashion trucks. Go to thedailycity.com and click on fashion trucks, and you can read about them there. And we're going to do a fashion truck bazaar soon. So are there any regulations with regards to selling in trucks, mobile?
Well, one thing is, I think Kenneth Cole even got his start with a fashion
Kenneth
truck.
Cole, is that what you said?
He did. He
Yeah.
got his start as a fashion truck in New York, but the way that he did around it is that he got permits for a film permit apparently and did commercials because they don't actually allow people to sell merchandise and items off the street, and that's how there's a famous story about how Kenneth Cole got his start in business via his fashion truck, but this is 20 some odd years ago. Anyway, one of the things about selling used items and things like that in trucks and outdoors is there's a fine line between flea market and trucks, and there's certain locations inside the city that we restrict what we call outdoor retailing uses, and you have to be in the right zoning district. That's the key. You have to be in an area that allows for outdoor intensive retailing types of uses. So if you're going to go in Thornton Park and be in an office district at, let's say, the Old Town Brokers lot, that's right next door to residential, those are locations that would not allow for outdoor intensive retailing types of uses. So you have to be very careful about where it is. Sometimes you have to get special permits from the city if you do intend to do intensive retailing types of uses, because the concern is we don't want the city becoming a flea market and sprouting up in different locations throughout the city. So you really have to check with the planning department to figure out where it is that you would and would not be necessarily allowed. But you could do other types of things like Main Street events where they're having their own special sales, and I understand that they're going to try to have a fashion bazaar associated with the Church Street District hopefully sometime soon here. So you have to keep that in mind, and that would still be allowed because it's under those special events that are sponsored by the different main streets. A lot of our policies related to food trucks we're trying to allow. It's kind of like the chicken pilot program. You heard recently we were allowing chickens throughout the city, but not in the entire city, and we're limiting it to a certain place. So we're experimenting with it. It's the same type of thing kind of with food trucks. And this types of retailing is we're allowing it in limited locations throughout the city, evaluating it, and then we might expand it depending on what the demands are for out there.
I'm very excited to live in a town that is open to food trucks and open to mobile retail. I know like Washington, D.C. right now is going through a tough time with food trucks, and they've made decisions that are not anti-food truck, but kind of, and they're not really playing along. And it seems like Orlando is cautiously and smartly moving in a direction where they see the benefit of these mobile retailers. They see that it gathers a bunch of people, and it does take creativity from place to place, and it is something that lives in other towns. And Orlando is not against it. So I think we're all very lucky to live in a town that is kind of experimenting cautiously.
I
with that.
think for Orlando, it really is about placemaking and about creating community and creating local businesses, and we're definitely supportive of that. The Entrepreneur Center, if you've never been there, is incredible. It's
Fashion Square Mall.
At Fashion Square Mall, kind of over by in between JCPenney and Macy's over there in the middle of the mall on the one end that goes out to the parking garage there. If you've never been there and you're intending to start a business, it's one of those, I think it's the most highly awarded entrepreneur center in the country. They run it like it's incredible. It has different, it has everything from the Hispanic Chamber in there to, and there's all sorts of resources that you can get at that particular location. It's really impressive, so.
Thank you. We have to say goodbye. The library does close in 15 minutes. Can I please have a round of applause for all of these wonderful guests? They're all fantastic. Please grab a tote. Thank you so much.